Chatterbaits are amazing baits that can catch fish in dirty water, mainly because of their chatter functions. But if you don't follow these tips, you may find yourself thinking that the chatterbait sucks and all it does is get hung up. But if you do follow these tips, I promise you, you're gonna catch a whole lot more bass on the chatterbait. So my first tip is gonna help you from getting hung up so much in wooded cover, such as laydowns and stick-ups. Most of us like to use a shed-shaped trailer like this one on our chatterbaits. However, around wooded cover, all this is gonna do is fall over and potentially hook up the wood and cause us to be hung up on that piece of cover. I like to recommend switching to a flatter style bait, such as this bandito bug. This is a creature style bait, and it will simply just go right over the laydown or stick up or whatever's in the water and not get hung up. In fact, if you tried hard enough, it would just sit perfectly on it and not fall over at all. Now, when I rig up my chatterbait with a creature bait, I'm gonna pull off the arms. I'm gonna shorten it up a little bit so it's not so far after the tassels here. And I'm also gonna cut a V in it to help it have a smoother transition through vegetation. Tip number 2 is that we want to vary our retrieve when retrieving the chatterbait. I'm guilty of this. I'll get into some kind of trance just thinking about whatever's going on in the world, and I will just have a constant retrieve waiting for a bite. But that's not what we want to do. We want to trigger reaction bites. So we want to vary our speed during our cast, a little faster, a little slower here, do a couple twitches every now and then, and most importantly, we want to stop. We want to let that bait fall through the water column, and that will trigger that reaction bite. Tip number 3, we want to keep our bait in the strike zone for as long as possible. And that means we don't want to just cast at the bank, perpendicular, and retrieve. We want to be right up next to the bank and casting parallel with it, keeping that bait in the strike zone for as long as possible. And that depends on the depth of fish that we're fishing for. If they're real shallow, you're gonna get right up next to that bank. If they're a little further off, 5, 6, 10 feet, you're gonna be a little further off, casting parallel with the bank. Now this is a really great tip for bank fishermen because they always like to cast toward the middle. Instead of casting toward the middle, cast to the side. Cast sideways, and that will keep your chatterbait in the strike zone for as long as possible. Tip number 4 will help us identify when we need to pick up the chatterbait and fish it. And I find the chatterbait works best in loud conditions. This can be wind, this could be boat traffic, this could be rising waters and dirty waters. It's really defined by when the fish has to use its lateral line to find its food source. So if you don't quite get it, let me give you a quick example. Imagine yourself being in a loud and noisy airport, people everywhere, things going all over the place. You got a guy, a cart boy, just bringing a cart through. You got people stumbling over trying to get their shoes on. And you need to find out when your flight's leaving, and you hear over the intercoms, your flight is leaving. It's a very loud and specific sound that draws your ear to it. And that's what the chatterbait does. Maybe you're not fishing loud conditions that require the chatterbait. In that respect, I would recommend using the drop shot. Check out this video for mistakes that you might make while drop shot fishing. But until next time, see you later, fishing fam.